What's up, everybody? Welcome. I'm Guy. That's John. If you're watching on YouTube, that's great. Hit that like and subscribe. If you're listening to the podcast, that's great too. They're both great.
We live?
Are you alive? Yeah, we're here.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was looking at something.
We are here. Podcast down in the description below. If you're watching, YouTube in the description of the podcast. If you are listening.
What's happening, everybody?
Well, Warriors lost, and I've been fighting. I know you have too. Yeah, I've been hearing it a lot, and excessive.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't just lose; they got shellacked.
Well, you know what?
It was.
I just like as bad as they were. If I predicted that team was going to win in 5, like I did, then although the chat is saying did you predict Warriors in 5?
Yeah, I mean, I talked a ton of shit. I
know you
won't
did.
back
Did you
off and
predict
I'll
Warriors
double
in
down on the Nuggets.
Oh,
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
I said I said they would sweep after the first game, and that went poorly. But yeah, I know.
There go Nuggets.
Fine. I ride it or died it with Steph Curry. I can live with that.
I have a hard time. That was tough to watch, but that wasn't the Warrior team I know. Fuck them.
No, it wasn't.
Jordan Poole. Love the guy, but Klay Thompson's seen better days. I think it's. If you told me Klay Thompson wasn't on this team next year, I think that's on the table. Makes a lot of coin.
He does. So does Jordan. A lot of people make a lot of coin. Draymond can opt in and make a lot of coin.
But not to me. Draymond in the 20s is. I mean, Klay's in the 40s.
Yeah, Klay's very expensive for what he brought to the table the other day, John.
Yeah, wasn't great.
So we can talk about that. I do want to start though. There was actually, as we're recording this Tuesday afternoon, or we're live Tuesday afternoon, there was a tweet today that got my attention because I've been diving deep into the NFL schedules, and by the way, we'll do some mailbag stuff. You can Apple review 5-star, leave a question in that, or you can email promo code ham@gmail.com. We got some mailbag questions from there. And if you want the schedule I'm going to show today, just email that email and we'll send you, I made like a homemade, it's a good schedule. So
Excel
check
spreadsheet?
Yeah, it's a spreadsheet. It's got Niners plus primetime plus what the opponent is doing when you play them, what they're coming off of. So it's got a little everything. I'll show you TV and network and TV kick time.
Gotcha.
But so Warren Sharp posted this tweet today. He said, Net rest is the total days of extra rest versus an opponent's over the course of the season. So if the Fighting Middlekauffs played on Monday and I played on Sunday, we each played different teams, and then we play each other the following Sunday. Since he played Monday, I am +1 net rest, right?
Yeah.
If John's off a bye, I am +7 net rest. So the Jets, the Bears, the Commanders, they're all +12. They are 12 days more rested than their opponents over the balance of the season. The Titans are 11. The Browns are 10. It just goes on. Warren's list goes on. Then it gets to the minus teams, the teams who have less rest. Seattle and Vegas, 4 days, -4. Tampa, the Chargers, the Eagles, -6 days. Then we skip down to -9 days, the Giants. Nobody -10, nobody -11. Atlanta, -12 days. KC, 13. Nobody 14, nobody 15, nobody 16, 17. The Rams, all right? Nobody 18, nobody 19. 20 days, negative rest differential, the 49ers. So the question is, Warren said, hey, this really matters. -20 rest day differential. It's a big number, right? Whether you think it matters or not, most of the league is on the other side of this spectrum. Does this matter? We'll dive into the schedule in a second, but there's the initial report.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't matter at all. Like, when I looked at the schedule, when I look at this team, no different than last year. I mean, anything less than like 11 wins is a disaster. Like, they're honestly, beside the Eagles, I mean, fuck, guy, I don't view their schedule as very different. They play in one of the worst divisions in football. Arizona Cardinals are a joke. The Niners swept their division last year. I think the Rams, they got a very, very thin margin, and we know Kyle Shanahan against the Rams when they're good. I mean, we've seen them when they were in the peak of their powers. And I'm sorry, Seattle, which is a good story, and I have a lot of respect for Pete and John. I expect them to continue to be competitive. I'm sorry, I don't. At worst, you're splitting.
Yeah.
Especially the way it sets up, right? they play
Right.
in the stretch that they do. So, like, I just view this team no different than I did last year when I didn't the complete unknown with quarterback. Now we know, assuming Purdy's healthy, they got Darnold, and Trey the third's quarterback. Like I don't view this like I don't the rest. I have a hard time also and listen, we're all guilty of this. For the majority of teams, I do think it's very difficult, and I think the Niners are a good example. If you played the Niners last year, hell, early in the season, like week 4, you'd be like, the Denver Broncos. Oh, we're getting Trey Lance. Let's prepare for Trey Lance. And then all of a sudden, Jimmy Garoppolo's a quarterback. Things change so fast in the NFL with injuries. Last year, Dak Prescott got hurt. Cooper Rush played last year, remember, a couple games. So it's like, the Cowboys, that's an enormous game. That 40 million people are going to watch that thing.
Right.
In that same scenario, the 49ers last year, because remember, Dak got hurt relatively early in the season. The quarterbacks for the Niners and the Cowboys a year previously were different in that game. And we can factor in all the other players, right? Like Kittle missed early time. So you just look at the Cowboys. Well, what if Micah Parsons? I think it's very difficult to play this game in the NFL as the season goes because there are so many variables with injuries, unlike the other sports.
That's true, but it doesn't mean it's hard to predict. It doesn't mean it doesn't come into play. Like if you told me Josh Johnson starting week 6, there's a difference between him starting off of a bye and not having come off a bye, right? Like if you're playing Cooper Rush off of Monday night, that's different than playing Cooper Rush who had 14 days to prepare for the game. I agree with you. We can't figure out right now what will matter, but these things do come into play at some point over the course of the season. Now, will they all come into play?
I do think the buys and the Thursday night games, which the Niners have 2 of them, as several other teams do, and playing teams off a bye does matter. Like you told me earlier, the Bengals coming off a bye. I think the Bengals are. You could argue, who knows? Maybe this is the year they win the Super Bowl. They could be the best team in the league. That is a fucking major disadvantage.
Right.
But the Cardinals off a bye, right? Wasn't that one of the teams off a bye?
So the Niners play 4 teams off a bye. One of them is the Jags when the Niners are coming off a bye. So put that one aside. The Niners play 3 teams off a bye when the Niners are not off a bye. It's the Browns week 6 coming off a bye. It's the Bengals week 8. Bengals are off a bye. Bengals just went at Arizona, Seattle at home, bye. And then you brought up the Cardinals. The other bye that the Niners have is week 15. They play the Cardinals coming off a bye. Cardinals off a bye.
Yeah, I would say that the Arizona Cardinals, I would put that a lot like the Jags. Doesn't matter.
Especially December. We know how they look in December. Historically, it's terrible.
The Bengals, major disadvantage because they're really, really good. Remember, a couple years ago when Ayuk's walkout, like they're just good team. They got Joe Burrow. they could beat you normal bye, normal rest, coming off Thursday night. They're on a Thursday night. Doesn't matter. So that's disadvantage. The Browns, like I'd put that in the camp of we'll see. I'm not taking the Browns seriously because I think they got way more question marks than answers, especially the elephant in the room this year is going to be paying a shitload for a quarterback that who knows, is he still good?
Right.
I don't know. I would bet against the Browns.
2 other notes how this comes in.
No, I'm not talking about that individual game. I'm not saying the 49ers can't lose. I'm just saying overall. I'd say the Browns are more likely to be 7-10 than 12-5.
Right, I agree. The Niners don't play a game when they're on regular rest and the opponent's off a short week. So, like, they don't play a game against the team that just played on Monday Night Football. They're the games where they do have a schedule advantage. When they play the Eagles, the Niners are coming off a Thursday Night Football Thanksgiving, so they'll have extra rest going to Philly. That's if we're going to talk about the negative. It's the days don't add, like this is the thing. The days don't add up, right? Like plus 3 days against the Eagles, minus 7 days against the Browns. So you're a net -4. But if you told me you could have +3 against Philly, but you're going to have to trade it for -7 against Cleveland, you would take that. Like +3 against Philly is a good spot, right? So
yes.
That's where these numbers, the net number, it depends who you're playing where. And then the other game that they have an advantage on is the first Cardinal game, which is week 4, because the Niners are coming off the Thursday night game against the Giants. So
yeah, to me, you would swap that for the Cowboys at
right.
Vikings. You would swap that for another game. Like the Vikings, for example, are a team that many people think are going to come back to earth, myself included. And when I say come back to earth, that doesn't mean they're going to draft Caleb Williams. It just means, instead of being, I'd even say under 500, 8-9, 9-8, kind of in that range, 7-10, best case 10-7. That is a very, very tough game when you factor in Monday Night Football at night. I mean, on the Monday Night Football, obviously at night. Monday Night Football on the road.
Yeah.
I think that is. I think they're. I think if we really dove in, like best home field, assuming the team is competitive too, they'd be near. If you like the Chiefs would be near the top. Chiefs might be one, given the fact when you factor in how good their team is, like how up people are for a Monday night game.
Yeah.
If the Vikings are above 500 going into that game will be fucking loud and tough.
By the way, do you know we have back-to-back week 2 and week 3 doubleheader Monday Night Football?
I read an article yesterday, no clue about this, and then I read the article. It happens 4 times this year. 2, 3, I think week 14 and 17. Who's asking for this?
Week
Why would
17 there's no
ESPN
Monday night,
eat
but there's a
themselves?
tripleheader week 16. Yeah.
What are we doing?
We also have a couple Fridays. Christmas week is 1 Thursday, 2 Fridays, and then the next week there's a Saturday game.
Well, okay, so week 14, Tennessee at Miami, which is just your ideal 10 a.m. West Coast kickoff on a Sunday.
Right.
The Packers, let's just say the Packers and the Giants are both just in the playoff mix around early December. That is a massive game, right, in terms of ratings.
Yeah.
Why would you have anything eating into that? To try to give
'cause
Steve
don't they
Levy
look
and
at it-
Riddick some reps? Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Orlovsky, don't they look at it just like you see ratings now. It's like we did X number across 7 different platforms, our ESPN Plus Espanol and ESPN Plus English Plus. You know what I mean? I think they just look at it like.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying you just get every eyeball in this thing. Like the guys watching, the Tennessee fan would just be watching the Packer game.
We could look back, right? Does the combined total add up to an extra 4 million viewers? Because you got those markets as well in a little more than you otherwise would have. I think they look at it like a collective, right? Like 12
I agree,
million
but
over
I'm
here
just
and
saying
8 million
I
over here
hate
is 20, and then we would have gotten 16 otherwise.
You're paying all this money. Why wouldn't you just, especially when you have big brands?
They're not just paying money to the media rights.
Think about how many guys. I don't know what the current contract situation is, but Levy was on a Monday night deal. Tessitore was on a Monday night deal. Now these guys aren't making as much as Buck and McDonough. They've got 4 guys they're paying Monday Night Football money to at ESPN.
I think that shifts though once they're off though.
I don't know. I think if you're a good agent, you would say, yeah, you put my 5-year contract Monday night, but if you take me off Monday night for 1 year, like I still get my money.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how that works, but I think they might have 4 guys they're paying Monday night TV money to.
I see. Well, I think once that's why Bob Iger starts firing people and starts threatening, people take pay cuts fast, right? Because if you're not on it anymore, it's like, well, listen, I like making 4 or 5 million, but I'd take my 1.5 too to call the Saturday
night.
I know,
especially when they're laying off 7,000 people.
Well, but I saw this thing the other night I saw Albert Breer tweet this out, I think yesterday. The NFL laid off a lot of people. And, the Peacock story broke that they gave an extra $100 million just for that one game.
For one game, yeah.
And everyone's piling on like, these greedy fucking owners. It's like, well, Google, Apple, and you just go all the, Facebook, they make way more money and are way bigger companies than the NFL. They're firing people left and right. So it's like, this isn't a black and white situation. Part of it, when times change a little bit economically, you can be making money and still trim the fat somewhere. Like that's just, no one's like, well, Google's never made more money. They're firing people. Like what are we talking about? I think the media, and it mainly everyone quoted Breer's tweet. Like, yeah, it's not the way it really works.
Well, if given the chance to spend more money on the NFL, you will borrow money or fire people to do that, right? It's not apples to apples here, but
when the other element too is like
part of why you're doing that is because you're paying all this other money.
Well, your expenses also are dramatically higher, aka the players. Like, remember, they split the revenue. So when you see Jalen Hurts and Lamar and Nick Bosa certainly going to get that, this is all part of the pie here, But no one ever wants to say that, right? Because it's so easy to go at the top. They are partners in this whole thing. It's like I can't believe. Well, and listen, I've lost my job twice, been fired. Best thing that ever happened to me. So, and I understand some people, family, if they don't want you, fuck them. Hasn't there never been a better time to find a job?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's
Why do
quite
you
that
want
easy
to work
for
somewhere when
everybody.
they don't want you? It's like, fuck, they don't even value you.
Well, so a lot of people are just survive until the next paycheck, right? Like it's not about
Which I
passion
totally
or-
understand.
It's just about survival, right? So in that situation, I think it's a little unique, but yeah, you don't want to go back to.
I just think the NFL gets unfairly picked on in this situation, in a media sense, because it's just like obviously these numbers, all these companies all over America that make dramatically more than the National Football League are doing the same exact thing. It's like Google and these people are signing huge deals too, and they're letting people go. It's just part of a business model.
Also, yeah, I think for us, we would happily trade $18 beers for $6 beers if it meant the starting quarterback made $12 million instead of $40 million. But that cat's out of the bag.
But that's part of my pushback is like, the players are in on this too. But no one
the
would
players
ever
aren't like,
bring that.
Hold on. Well, but also the players know that the salary cap works against, like in the end, the salary cap works against them, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'd say it's so
there is
big
a floor.
now.
There is a salary. There is like a minimum number. Yeah, I mean, they're not suffering. I'm just saying, like, they're not bleeding the owners. The owners aren't. The market size doesn't matter, and your income doesn't matter when it comes to paying the players.
Well, no business in the history of America has ever made more millionaires. Honestly, it's only going to keep growing. It's not even close than the National Football League, because you just factor in all the people that work that are now millionaires, coaches included, right? Just the amount of people, right? It's just the amount of players. How many industries? I bet if we even went to Apple, there's no chance on God's green earth they have as many people
it's like
making over.
Becoming a top Apple engineer the same as like getting drafted in the 5th round. Like, what is that level of how many Apple? Like, if I say I'm an Apple engineer, are there 700 of me or are there 55 of me? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, if there are 55 of you, it's a higher paying job than if there are 700 of you.
Right.
But
and
even
if there's
there are
700, there's not
55,
that many. 700 is not a lot.
Well, no, there are way more NFL players, right?
Yeah, I need somebody who works in that world to tell me, like,
because even the lowest paid NFL player, right, like Brock Purdy, is making 800 G's.
Apple engineers have longer shelf lives,
but these guys make way more money.
Yeah. TC on the stream says Guy and John will be the first two saying how much they loved Lance and always knew when he was balling out and gets Brock traded for a 1st-round pick. That sounds like a win-win situation to me. I would be all for that. That's what people don't. People don't get, like, we get. We're not going to do that whole thing every show. Although somebody DM'd me today, like, "Are you going to do this every show?" I'm like, no, I don't want to do this every show. But I would be all for that. I would. That is a win-win. That's not like Warriors lose, Lakers win. That scenario is a win-win.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty unlikely too.
Speaking of Trey Lance, John, did you see him at the A's game the other day? Not hard to find, not hard to spot.
I saw a lot of people
tagging
tagging
get those
us.
Tickets.
I saw a lot of people are like, this shows you what the Giants or the 49ers think of him. He's going there. I was like, well, Clay used to go to these games a lot.
They didn't like call him like, hey, Trey, we have an obligation for you today. We're sending CMC to game 6, and we're sending you to the A's Guardians. That's not how
Did you see the viral clip?
Why was he there?
Of an A's ticket lady that went over to tell people they couldn't sit at a certain section? Barstool retweeted it like within the last week. She was beelining too. People just trying to do their job.
Wow. I mean, I guess you're probably bored. Like, there's no one's coming up to you asking, like, hey, how do I get to section 118? So you look for something to do, maybe,
Yeah, I mean,
you're a police officer patrolling in a neighborhood with no crime, so you just start looking for stuff to do.
I just wonder, in 10 years, will that whole place be flat? Because that's where I think it's, as someone that spent several years going to, Raider games, you were able to pivot relatively quickly out of doing those A's games after a year.
Thanks to you, actually.
I know, but then you got to profit.
I got moved from 11.
Some of the reads, I didn't quite know what was going on.
You had not been doing radio at 10:30 p.m. every week.
No, I'll give you that. I think that area is destined to get the old kablooey. I'd probably put, harder to do business in the Bay and get things done. I'd put the over under probably 10 years, not 5. But you can't. Like yesterday, I saw a picture. I think I forwarded to you, 2,000 people at the game. Like, it's
what was the stat that was part
lowest
of that?
attendance lowest paid announced attendance since 1979.
So I looked it up when you
and
sent
I
me
saw
that.
someone quote it that said it still doesn't beat. Not even trying to be, just trying to be funny. Like the Giants in like 1974 had like an announced 1,300. A candlestick.
For one game, you said 1,300.
Surely, I mean, again, the 79 and 74, we're talking different demographics in terms of quantity of human beings in the area, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, the percentage of the population that attended. But, when you look historically, the A's were always, even when they were good, they were near the bottom of American League attendance. But when you sent me that yesterday, I was like, oh, I wonder how terrible the 79 A's were, because the early 70s teams were really good. The 79 A's won 54 games. That means they lost 108 games. Okay. This team has 9 wins.
9 wins, I saw.
So they're on a 35-win pace, which means really kind of give these people credit. They're watching a worse baseball team, at least on paper by pace, than the people who went to the 79 team. So they're getting more people per win this year, John, than in 79. When you look at it that way, it's glass half full.
Listen, give us credit, me specifically, because I brought up this franchise even before we hopped on the podcast. It's not a great business model to talk about this team. As you can see, no one cares about this team. I've been saying forever, you cannot survive. I do believe the Raiders could have survived in the Bay. 100% big picture. It worked out.
I think the Raiders could have been selling out every home game if they had remained.
Well, and they did, even after they announced they left. Football's a lot different. It's not tenable if someone built them. I am adamant. If you built them a fucking stadium in whatever the little area is, you pick
Jack
it.
London or whatever.
I don't think it matters. This team cannot survive. It's been over even when they were competitive. I don't think it's plausible. I never thought it was possible. I think baseball is so much different than football. Even though, listen, I'm not going to give Mark Davis credit because he wasn't the leader of the bus. It was his maybe idea to go to Vegas. Then the league fucking drove the bus there. But they got there. That's going to work. And one day whenever they force him out and they get an owner there, it fucking thing's going to shoot to the moon. But that is not the case. Like, the A's will be there. I don't even know if it will really work, but they cannot work. Like, it's a one baseball area.
And that other team's been dominating for a really long time.
And they're struggling right now to get people to show up.
Yeah. One thing that that Tropicana, that location in Vegas that they're doing, I've been saying for a few years, I think it's the future. It clearly is. It's only
Have you been there before?
I mean, have I been to that area? I'm sure, but I don't.
Why do you think it was the future then?
No. What's the future is they're building a small stadium, 30,000 seats.
Oh.
You use premium seating. You make it smaller. You make it more intimate. You make it, like I would do that. They don't have a big footprint there, but I would do that anywhere. Anywhere I was building a stadium, I'd make it smaller. I'd make it noisier, right? Basketball, you don't want to do it necessarily because you can fill basketball and you want concerts. But for baseball, football, you probably don't need to. But baseball, 100%. I'd make that sucker 28,000 seats.
Yeah.
Give it premium seating and make it cozy and, a good home field advantage. And bam, you're good. So,
yeah, I mean, I just
cool that Trey was able to catch him on the way out.
I was thinking in the
Who
shower
will be
today,
a Niner who will be in the Bay Area longer, the A's or Trey Lance?
The A's, because even though I think like it's got to end, it could easily go on for a couple more years. Like, because even if, let's say, they're moving, which they clearly are, where would they go if they wanted to leave? Like, that was part of the Raiders thing, right? They didn't have anywhere to go. There's not just because they could come to spend some time. They could just spend a couple years here in, let's say, Scottsdale, and split it with an indoor. That's hard logistically, right? You couldn't just go split it with another team. That's very, very difficult logistically.
You don't want to go play at some AAA ballpark.
But even that AAA ballparks, they use them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that'd be tough.
It's a little more complicated.
Omaha?
Honestly, what the Raiders did, they kind of just squatted and then they left when it was ready.
Yeah. By the way, for the record, I haven't given up on Trey Lance, but that's a separate conversation that I said we're not having today.
Yeah, I would say when I say that I have, it's really strictly very influenced by the team. Like I don't, it's not like I'd watch him throw or go to his workouts. I just get the vibe of what they say. And I feel like when they talk about him positively, it's like a forced lie. I don't feel it's very.
And then there'll be like some leak, like, oh, Sam Darnold, somebody else says is incredible.
Yeah, it feels like they try to leak. Then they've tried to leak back against him, like when Rap Sheet said something. It's just, they're very organic about their sweet guys and the guys they truly believe in. Like they have zero hesitation, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't have a line to Nick Bosa or Deebo Samuel ain't fucking going anywhere. Don't even try us, right? Or the way they feel about their core guys, or even like the way they talk about Purdy without hesitation. Like, God, man, we just didn't see this thing coming, right? I base my thought on Trey was I was a little uneasy with what I saw the way it was going, and then now it's just based on them.
But you can improve. You could improve, and also what you said about the schedule, it's hard to predict, in May or even at the beginning of the year, all the things that'll go wrong. You can't be stressed about playing the team off a bye. All that applies to the Niners quarterback situation. We've seen it firsthand. We saw it firsthand last year, right? It's not just about what they believe. It's also about opportunity. And we've seen quarterbacks get hurt repeatedly playing for Kyle Shanahan, unfortunately, Trey included. So the chance that an opportunity appears for him, even if he doesn't earn the backup job or the starting job to start the season, history is not a predictor in this case, but it might be. And that's part of the reason, as I just think the odds of him just getting a chance because he's the only guy that can are, non-zero, as we like to say. So, yeah, I don't know. What else do we have here? There was something. Oh, Warriors? No, we kind of talked about that a little. I texted a buddy of mine in Denver. I said, I don't think I've ever in my life out in the wild, walking the streets, seen a person in a Nuggets hat. I don't think it's ever happened. Not once. And he was like, I was at a coffee shop the other day and I heard two people talking about the Nuggets, and it hit me like, I've never heard that before. I've never heard two people talking about the Nuggets before in a public place. I mean, I can't believe I'm about to watch the Nuggets. I can't believe it.
Well, they've never really consistently been good in our lifetime.
Watch the Nuggets sweep the Lakers. Sorry, I didn't finish that sentence. Kidding.
Yeah, I mean, I think by far this is, like when you think about like in our youth, a lot of teams were shaped. I hate to say it, like the NBA's heyday just was the 90s. I mean,
when you pull the Nuggets card out of a skybox pack, you're just like, who is it? Robert
but like, remember the Dikembe Mutombo with the ball in his hands? What team was he on?
Yeah.
The Nuggets, right?
Yeah, that was an 8-1.
Yeah, so when you think of teams, when I just throw
a while ago.
But I'm just saying, when I throw a name of a team like Utah Jazz, you don't say like the recent play. You say like Malone and Stockton. When I say the New York Knicks, you say like Patrick Ewing, right? You just Orlando Magic. You say like fucking Penny Hardaway. You just say the core guys for most teams, like I would say LeBron, Steph, some maybe Giannis with the Bucks. The Nuggets just have never truly, like I don't even count Melo. It's kind of weird.
When you say Nuggets, I always have to go like, okay, not Denver. No, Denver, not Utah. Got it. Okay.
This guy is fucking remarkable. I mean, I've watched a decent amount of their games just on in the background, just because I was kind of gearing up. I actually didn't have as much faith, as watching the Warriors as I portrayed.
Yeah.
I think they would have lost. Like the Nuggets are winning they should win the NBA. They're the best team, and this guy is. I think Tim McMahon tell Windhorst, he's like, this is a love child between Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki that weighs 280 pounds. His like passing, his weird shots. You see some of the quotes from Kevin Durant that was like, you're like fucking mad when he does this crazy little hook floater thing, but you just, once you start playing him like by game 2 or 3, just like everything I don't care if he puts it like through his legs, around his butt, over, it's going to go in. His shots do not look normal.
You think that's why he didn't win the MVP again?
I mean, it's just like you can't. If you pulled every GM in the league, there is not. I don't even think Philly, every single team in the league would take him over Joel Embiid. I don't even think it's close.
I know.
I mean, honestly, you watch him. Like I've seen Embiid before, right? Our youth had a ton of those guys. This guy to me has kind of got this Steph, like I don't think I've ever seen this. I don't think anyone has. Bro, he's like running the break, but he's enormous, doing these crazy passes, and you look up, he's got like 50, 20, and 10. See some of his stat lines? I mean, he's incredible.
You want to get some mailbag questions?
Yeah, far away.
All right, here we go. 5 stars on Apple Podcast, or you can email promo code ham@gmail.com. This is from Foyer on the Apple Podcast. Very entertaining, great insight. Keep up the great work. Question: with the Patriots and Mac Jones looking unhappy and the Niners iffy on Lance, could you see the two being traded one another, given Kyle's obvious interest in wanting to draft Jones in the first place? Feels like Matt. I don't think the Patriots are about to trade him, but it feels like that would not. Could you do a 1-for-1 trade between those two? Doesn't feel like it. Feels like the Patriots would need more.
I would say in one thing that's turned off Bill, which I would say Kyle is a skinny, taller, younger version doppelganger in terms of what he likes in players. That kind of freaking out and that kind of leaking that he's unhappy, to me, Kyle was looking Mac Jones to be Brock Purdy, and he got Brock Purdy, who's clearly much more low-key.
Hey, by the way, you know who also isn't Brock Purdy? If you've been listening to this podcast for several months, you know that I've been participating in the rumor that Stetson Bennett may not have graduated from Georgia. That ain't Brock Purdy. 6 years at Georgia without a degree. As you said to me, as Jalen Hurts signed.
He did leave to go to junior college and came back.
Yeah, like after 1 year. Jalen Hurts gets a $200 million contract and goes and graduates. Stetson Bennett's at Georgia for 6 years. Doesn't graduate.
Well, guy, how many
care about degrees? But in that case, that's just bizarre.
Well, but I would imagine there aren't many senior quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that don't have a degree. It's one thing to come out as an underclassman, right?
Right.
So
100%. 6 years.
I'd even just say, like, if you're a 4-year senior, I bet every quarterback in NFL history has had a degree. Remember, like, Leinart and some of those guys, like, had already graduated. They're taking one class.
Yes.
It's not that difficult.
Patrick, been listening for many years, love the pod, but your basketball takes are unbearable. More so John than Guy. Imagine not counting the bubble year. I'm actually in total agreement with John on not counting the bubble year, but counting the Warriors championship against LeBron and Lil Matthew Dellavedova. Never mind the fact that they're the number one before the shutdown and had huge wins against the Clippers and Bucks. Then Giannis hurt his knee and LeBron was going to win the MVP. Then the bubble happens. They lose at home. They lose home court advantage and all the momentum they had. And they're one of the few teams that voted to leave the bubble, but it doesn't count and get a grip. Wait, Giannis, I'd forgotten. Giannis was also hurt that year. Now it's even more legitimate.
I do remember watching that Clipper-Laker game.
Yeah.
I'm not acting like LeBron's not some all-time great player that could dominate anybody, or if Anthony Davis is going to play like fucking this Anthony Davis that he's not. I saw someone tweet out like, look at what LeBron's doing. No all-stars on the team. Well, no, if Anthony Davis is playing like this, I don't care. Take 90% of the all-stars, he's better than. But the bubble, like, that's not real basketball. Could they have won a normal championship? 100%. Could the Dodgers have won a normal championship that year in 2020? Of course, in theory they could have, but they didn't. They won a 60-game regular season, just like they won a fucking bubble championship. If you won real championships, it's like, I love this. Like, well, the Warriors had Kevin Durant. Well, LeBron's never played on a team that he didn't stack. It's just, this is kind of the first one I'll give him a little credit that is the least stacky. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because Rob Pelinka traded away the guys he wanted in the middle of the season and made the team better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he wanted Russ. They got rid of Russ. The story was like, oh, Rui, does he really want Rui? Not that Rui Hachimura is doing much. Was he banging the table for Hillbilly Kobe?
No, they kind of lucked into that.
Was Wayne Knight the fourth? What's that guy's name? I want that guy on the Warriors. He's good. What's his name?
I don't know. I don't.
Warren Sharp.
Now, he did pound the table to trade every human alive on the team for Anthony Davis, which is,
I could have banged the table on that one.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it's not like if they win it will justify. Because you look at it, I watched the playoffs like, God, if the whole NBA regular season could look like this, it'd be incredible. And then I thought, well, is it possible the postseason looks this good because all these guys are rested from not playing full regular seasons? Like, if Anthony Davis played 80 games, would he look like this now? Maybe not, right?
Yes. I'll give him the NBA leads the world in overhyped players and definitely overpaid humans that are basically paid to do stuff in the regular season that for a fact, like cousin style, can never win you a championship.
Right.
I will say this about if Anthony Davis is on the court and trying, he's always going to be a top 5-6 player in the league. Like the Donovan Mitchells and the Hardens. I'd even kind of put Embiid closer to that category. Like Anthony Davis, when the motherfucker is healthy and tries, it's like, holy shit.
Well, I would say like Embiid, when his career's done, if he doesn't win a championship, I'll go, okay. Watching Anthony Davis, like, that's a championship player. Right. The way he changes games, the way he plays. If he wasn't, honestly, like he's one of the easily one of the most fun players to watch the NBA. He's just so unique. And he beat the Warriors. I mean, it was incredible. Yeah, not single-handedly. He got a lot of help, but he just changed the whole game. He just defensively. Yeah. All right. Next up from, I don't know who this is from, but it says, dig up John. Always entertaining. John's recent defense of his bandwagon support of the Warriors was funny. One life, one team, fella. Oh, so he's saying you have to be a Kings fan for life. Enjoy the football.
But I wasn't a Kings fan. This is my defense. I started as a Bulls fan, so my Kings run was short. Right. I'm an NBA
vagabond,
drifter,
yeah, squatter. For guys, enjoy the football takes, but they were quiet post draft about Trey, given he wasn't traded. For guys who claim they don't have skin in the QB drama, they sure get excited when Trey appears destined for the exit. Surely they'd be excited for a QB battle about to take place over this summer. One last plea to learn the definition of unique. It's a one-off that can't be repeated or duplicated. It simply can't be qualified with. So, very or quite. Oh, instead of saying unique, say very or quite. Keep up the banter. 5 stars. Thanks for the support. Always appreciate the feedback.
That was a unique take.
Yeah, it was a unique take. Unique doesn't mean best. It just means all you need is like all our DNA is unique, but all you need is one little thing to be different. And something's unique. I got no problem.
Is Debo a unique player?
Yeah.
Is Steph Curry a unique player?
Yeah, but so is Clay. There are more guys kind of like Clay, but I'm not exactly like Clay.
Yeah,
he's definitely a unique person.
Are the Raiders a unique franchise?
Did you see the Aces just lost their 2025 first round pick for there was like a bullying of a player, but also something with a contract. I couldn't quite figure out what happened there.
This to me was a difficult one for a lot of the this would be a BP fastball story for a lot of the Big J journos that I follow. If Becky Hammon had been, male X.
Oh, like Bill Lambier would have been a fun target.
Because he coached the WNBA. That's a good one. But Becky, a woman, basically shaming you for being pregnant, trading you, which has got to be unique to the NBA, or the WNBA, that the NBA, if you do get pregnant and we're on a playoff run, tough spot for the coach, right? Especially if you're giving birth, like you're just not, it's one thing like sprain your ankle or what, you're just gone. You go paternity leave? How does that, I don't know I'm not a WNBA guy, so I don't know all the rules, but Becky, great player in her own right, you become a coach, that means you're addicted to the game, that it's,
I hope Mark
those are allegations of harassment, correct?
I didn't, yeah.
And they lost the first round pick for doing the
contract suspicious stuff.
Yeah, and I've heard Mark say that one of the things he wanted to do in owning a WNBA team is compensate these people better.
Oh.
But Mark, you got to follow the rules.
Out of the goodness of his heart. All right, here we go. An emailed mailbag from Johnny. I'm from Long Island, New York. Been listening to you guys since those post-Harbaugh years. Always my first choice when I'm looking for content. Question, after listening to your conversation about the Niners' core players, it struck me how well Lynch and Shanahan have done turning over the roster. I was initially skeptical of hiring Lynch. It's tough for me to gauge these things being on the opposite side of the country, but do you remember if the initial reaction to the Lynch hire was skepticism or optimism? Keep up the great works. Thanks, Johnny. I think it was optimism because it was viewed, tell me if you remember differently, but it was viewed as like it's Kyle Shanahan that got hired. And he's bringing John Lynch with him because they're boys.
But you
were people skeptical of Lynch when he got hired, or were they optimistic?
I would say universally around the league, it was probably give me a break. If you just polled from some dude that worked for the Giants or the Tampa Bay Bucks or the Dallas Cowboys, they would, and that's just a natural reaction I would say in any industry when someone. It's weird, like John Lynch isn't qualified, Hall of Fame player, had been studying with Elway and Adam Peters with the Broncos. Not like he just came out of nowhere, right? Is he any more qualified than some guy that's never put on a, athletes love saying this, a jockstrap?
Bob Myers? Bob Myers had played college basketball and then was an agent. right?
Pelinka-
That's different. Probably a
I-
different qualification.
Pelinka, same thing, right? College basketball player, longtime agent. I'd say basketball a little more unique transitions with coaches and GMs that just go from that. Where football, Ozzie Newsome kind of transitioned as a scout and worked his way up. Probably less long than other people. I would say universally it was probably like what? Locally, 49er fans were just so I mean, it had been pretty ugly post Harbaugh. And those were probably the longest 2 years of
Just getting Shanahan felt like a win. That was part of it, though. And it was like no one likes Kyle, so we had to find somebody who would like him, right? Like that was kind of the way we talked about it, or not we. It was kind of the general perception.
I'm trying to think of a hire in recent memory that I think a lot of hires are like, I hope. Think how many hires are viewed as like.
You're trying to think of a hire that's a hope.
I'm saying in the NFL, like when USC hired Lincoln Riley, it was 100% approval. When's the last time an NFL hire was just like everyone in the fan base around the country like that's a no-brainer? I just don't think
Chiefs
it happens
hiring
that
Andy
often.
Reid, Daboll, no. McVay, no.
I'd say D'Amico would be up there for them.
D'Amico's up there, yeah. Partly it was the Texans, so it was like, wait, you guys gonna do any better than D'Amico? But yeah, D'Amico's up there.
Was he the best candidate over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, even like like the Shanahan guys were not like LaFleur's going to go work with him or McDaniel's going to be a head coach. Like that was not viewed the same. Yeah, D'Amico, that's a good one.
I also think the reaction, I mean, for every Tom Sula you laughed at, I mean, Sirianni was laughed at. It's worked out pretty well.
Very much. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Sean McVay, I'd say one was met with a lot of skepticism.
Absolutely. This is from Cam H. I circled some of it. He actually said something in here that somebody put in the chat, like, why don't you guys do crossover collaboration work? He mentioned Grant Cohn. So did somebody else in the chat, which we can address it. But the question here is, I appreciate Kyle's a good coach, but the Niners are no closer to finding a franchise quarterback, having passed on Mahomes, Watson, having not nurtured Trey Lance successfully. So how long is his leash to staying the head coach? The Eagles fired Andy Reid despite his numerous NFC championship appearances, as it was clear he couldn't win him a Super Bowl. Should the Niners give him 3 years maximum? If you're, in your opinion, what is a fair time frame to say he had a chance to deliver Lombardi? Take care, Cam H.
Andy, 14 years in Philadelphia. Kyle's going into year 7. So if Kyle doesn't win a Super Bowl, if you use the Andy Reid kind of tree, this would have been halfway through the Andy Reid run in Philly. I think it's 7 more years, a long time. Right?
I think it's crazy to get fired for going to conference championship games.
It's in fucking sanity, guy. I mean,
and that was Philadelphia, right? That was in Philly. You argue Philly or New York, and in Philly or New York, he got 14 years.
And his last couple years were
so he gets 30 years.
12.
At this pace, he gets 30. I mean, at this pace, he could. If he keeps it up like this, he's the Niners coach for as long as he wants to be.
The Yorks have had 2 really good coaches, right? Neither of them won a championship, and both of them, one thing they learned from the previous one, you kind of ride it out because it's just as easy to get a Chip Kelly, Tom Sula, a Mike Nolan, a Mike Singletary, which I would argue are more often than not the guy you're going to end up hiring. Someone within a couple of years, you're like, this isn't. Let's say this for like Mike McCarthy, which we're all skeptical he can win a Super Bowl. The Yorks, for most of their career, would die for that. Just someone that knows what they're doing, kind of can get them off. Yep. Look at the Giants. I mean, they've had Coughlin and Parcells, and they still hired the Shermers and the Judges. I just think it's really, really difficult job to hire.
I agree. All right, that's all the mailbag questions. Apple Podcast or promo code ham@gmail.com. If you want that schedule, let me know. Yeah,
I know people hate my basketball takes, but I got one more. I saw a picture. Now, I think Michael Rubin, the guy that owns Fanatics, is shorter. I follow him on Instagram, and he tweeted out a picture because clearly the guy gets his way in business with everybody. Standing next to Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah.
Who was
lotteries tonight. Yeah.
Lottery, I think 30 minutes before the Laker game. And everyone says that, if LeBron's the best prospect, the modern era. I'd say in like our lifetime, like LeBron, Shaq, right?
Yeah.
Anthony Davis was a very highly valued. I think Zion was pretty high up there.
Yep.
Short list, Zion would be behind all those guys. But this guy's viewed as, on that list, not LeBron level.
Yeah.
You see this guy's body. He's 7'5". Like how often do guys like that, like part of LeBron looking
Very
back, like
skinny.
unreal body, right?
Yeah.
Shaq, unreal body.
Willis
This
says
guy,
he thinks this guy would have been drafted ahead of LeBron if they were in the same draft. Have you seen him take like a step and a half to get from the 3-point line to the rim? It's pretty crazy. I saw him miss a 3 and follow dunk it. He shot the 3, missed it, and then follow dunked his miss. That's how quick he got from the 3-point line to the rim.
against 3 guys that played at Cal Poly or against
Against the Italian team. I don't know.
And I'm not trying to be anti this guy. I just think
You're saying he's a physical outlier.
well, and I think you could even look back at Chet Holmgren when you watch some like body types like that. One thing that turns out to make Kevin Durant very unique is he really is a very, very fluid, but he's 6'11", right, or 7. But that's, once you get those extra, like what's McGlinchey's problem? He's fucking just too tall.
Too tall, yeah.
And listen, I don't know, man. I just think the injuries with some of these guys. Chet immediately got hurt.
I know.
This guy's like a taller version of Chet, and people believe like Chet's one of the most unique prospects in recent memory, right?
Yep. There's something about being that skinny that just is worrisome.
Because ultimately it's like, remember Kevin Durant couldn't bench like 135 at one time? It didn't end up mattering. I would say he's got to be, most people probably in basketball, like an all-time outlier. When has there ever been a guy that looked like him, that played like him? It might never happen again.
Yeah.
I'm not shorting this guy's career. My point is that, I don't know.
I wouldn't mind Portland getting the first pick, him and Dame. Like, that'd be fun. I'd watch that.
Would you, though?
I don't want him going to Detroit. Yeah, I mean, like, Portland, like, when they're good, like, their games are good. Like, when they're in the playoffs, it's, like, good.
No, it is fun, yeah.
Not like good, it just is good. So, yeah.
We'll
PJ Championship this week. Bay
Tiger
Hill.
no-showed.
Yeah, tough. He's doing Bridgestone commercials.
Tiger's career's over.
Yeah. I'd like to see him at least be riding around in a cart for majors at some point. I don't know if he'll do it.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just too cool for school.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us. Hit us with some more mailbag questions. And, holler. Later.
Peace.